We'll start in a minute or two. There's actually no notes to copy down. I just want to go over something quick before we get to today's assignment. Okay, crew. So let's get started. So this is going to be the next few days. You're kind of be working on your own on an assignment. We've done something like this before when we did the Civil War back in like October. So you've done something similar to this. We're now going to do it for World War II. We're going to look at the battles of World War II. We'll do the first one together, which is known as the Battle of the Atlantic. And ultimately, what you want to understand is this is not due until Monday. So you're going to have all of today, all of tomorrow, all of the weekend, and then all of Monday to complete it. So there's really no rush. I have some ambitious students, of course, who may finish early. And if you do finish early, you're going to take this opportunity to catch up on work that you owe me. But I really want you to take your time with this. This isn't an assignment that should be done in a day. I think it should take a few days to get done. So let's kind of just, see what it is. What I'd like to just mention is I want to give you a sense of what World War II kind of looks like in terms of at least fighting. Because it is the deadliest war in world history, and we want to see like some of the weapons that are used throughout this particular war. So the first thing was pretty much everyone had a standard issue rifle, which you'll see right here at the top. It was called the M1 Garand. There were many others, but this is like the main one everyone had. So every soldier, no matter if you were, no matter what armed service you were in, you had this type of gun that you were working with. Pretty much all the soldiers had this. All right. We have that as the main weapon, but you'll see whenever you see a World War II battle, you saw some in Pearl Harbor already. There's a lot of explosions. There's a lot of things going on besides just guns being shot. There's going to be grenades that are often used, landmines that are going to be placed out in Europe that people had to be weary of because if they hit it, they would be blown up and killed. Tanks become very prevalent and very strong in this war. The most famous tank is known as the Sherman tank. So you'll see a mixture of that in some of the readings, how some of the tanks became involved. Tanks were very tough to fight against because, tanks are very powerful, weapons, basically. If you ever seen a tank, they're like almost indestructible. They can be destroyed, but it takes a lot of firepower. And you can shoot these big bomb missiles out of them. Off the top here, it's just very tough. So tanks become a huge way to fight in this war. Apart with that, you have two types of planes that are going to be big. You have fighter planes. That can be seen here at the top. This is a Marine plane. Basically, this particular plane, you would shoot like bullets out of. It's more of a fighter jet, so it's used in terms of like shooting things down. And this right here is known as a bomber plane. This is known as the B-17 bomber. This was like the most prevalent bomber. And what will go is these will go high in the air and they will drop big bombs onto a particular area of the battlefield. So we're fighting on the ground, we're fighting in the air, and of course we're fighting in the water. This is a big thing in World War I with the submarine U-boats, and now they're big again in World War II with the naval destroyer boats. These destroyer boats were very, very influential early on, especially in the Battle of the Atlantic, which is the first battle we're going to use. And these were big boats that shot very big missiles to try and get control of the oceans in this particular war. All right, so planes, tanks, bomber planes, we have boats, okay, and we have people fighting on the ground. It is fighting in every which way possible throughout this war, as you can kind of tell with all of these new weapons that are being used in these wars. All right, so now we're going to go to the battles worksheet. We're going to do the first one together. We're going to use this reading here to kind of help you. So if you guys want to have this open, that should be very, very helpful. We're going to look at the Battle of the Atlantic. We'll do the reading together. It's about a page long. You want to read first, and then you want to fill in the box that goes with it. All right, here's the box that goes with it. I think once you see the first example and how we do it, you'll understand how to go about it. But you need to get the details of the battle. You need to tell me where it was fought. Okay, I give you the dates already here on the bottom left. Some are a few days long, some are 5-6 years long, and this is one of those that are 5-6 years long. You need to tell me what Allied countries and Axis countries were involved. Now, I do help you out in case you forget who are the Allied powers and the Axis powers. If you scroll down, okay, you should notice I post the 5 major Allied powers and the 3 Axis powers throughout this particular battle. Right, so you want to be mentioning, you know, what countries are fighting throughout this war. All right, you want 2 major details from the battle, and then you need to tell me the results and the impact of the battle, and then, of course, at the bottom, who won. So we'll do this together, this first one together. You should have a good understanding of how it's done. All right, we'll read it together, and we'll see how we do with it. All right, so let's go to the Battle of the Atlantic. All right, I'm going to zoom in a little so it's a little bit easier. All right. So, both the Allied and Axis powers fought for control of the Atlantic Ocean during World War II. All right, so the Atlantic Ocean is a huge part of this battle. The Allies wanted to use the Atlantic to resupply Great Britain and the Soviet Union for their fight against Germany and Italy. The Axis powers hoped to stop them from resupplying themselves. The fight for control of the Atlantic Ocean was called the Battle of the Atlantic, coined by British Prime Minister Winston Churchill in 1941. So, essentially, most of the battles are fought out in Europe. So actually, I forgot to do something here. I apologize about this. Let me go back 1 second. I lied. You have to copy this slide down. I'm so sorry, guys. Get your notebook out. I'm going to give you a minute to do this. I forgot that you have to write down the slide so you can better understand what's going on. So I'll give you a minute to do this.
The whole thing?
Whole thing. Take your time. I'll give you about 3-4 minutes. Geez, guys, I'm sorry. This is what you're copying in blue. World War II is a forefront war. I thought I was sharing it. I apologize. All right, so please copy this down. Something's been up with my Google Meet today. So please copy down this. World War II is a forefront war. I'll give you about a few minutes to do it here. Okay. 4 fronts basically means that the war is fought in 4 different areas of the war. So a lot of battles take place in different areas of the world. We saw this with World War I, how like most of it was fought in like France, and then like other parts of the world, it was fought like the Middle East a little bit. It was kind of like fought all over the place. Ultimately, we're going to kind of see the different areas where it's fought, and this should help you in the battles here. All right, 2 of the fronts are fought in the Pacific Ocean and Asia, so we'll start with those. The Pacific Ocean is located, west of California. There's a lot of islands out in this area that is owned primarily by Japan. Okay, so this is known as island hopping. Okay, this is known as island hopping. So basically, people are going to soldiers in the Pacific are going to go from island to island, kind of fighting against the the Japanese soldiers at this time. You'll kind of see how this all breaks down, but ultimately, what's happening at this point is as the soldiers go from one island to the next, they're going to be fighting very tough battles out in this particular area. This particular area of the world is fought a lot differently than, let's say, in Asia. Okay, Asia is where Japan kind of is, and that is mostly owned by Japan and China, and some fighting is going to go on along there as well. Okay, so Japan, the Soviet Union, there'll be some fighting, Thailand, and the Philippines. The other two fronts of the war is fought out in Europe and Northern Africa. So Europe is where most of the fighting we'll look at kind of takes place. All right, and that's where America is going to do a good amount of the fighting out in this particular area of the world. Northern Africa is going to be fought mainly between the British, and it's going to be fought by the Italians. That's where a lot of those fightings go down. All right, so why the Atlantic Ocean becomes a big thing is the Atlantic Ocean is basically America's gateway to get to Europe to fight, which we'll talk about why this is such an important thing later. So having control of the Atlantic Ocean is kind of important. All right. When World War II starts, America needs to deploy troops to both parts of the world. They need to deploy troops out to the Pacific Islands, where Japan is, and they need to deploy troops out to Germany and Italy in Northern Africa and Europe. So you're fighting this all over the world. I know my in-laws, so my wife's grandfather, both grandparents, they both fought in World War II. One of them fought in the Pacific Islands, and the other one fought out in Europe. All right, so they were, a part of World War II, but fought in almost completely different areas of the world. All right, so sorry about that. I forgot to show that to you guys. So now we should have a better understanding of what's going on here. So let's go back to the reading. All right, we were at location and duration, so let's do that. So the Battle of the Atlantic took place throughout the northern region of the Atlantic Ocean. Okay, so basically the area between the United States and Europe. After the United States entered World War II in 1941, the Battle of the Atlantic spread all the way to the United States coast at the Caribbean Sea. The Battle of the Atlantic lasted over 5 years and 8 months, from September 3rd, 1939 to May 8th, 1945. In other words, there was constant fighting out in the Atlantic Ocean between these naval destroyer boats. The early battles. The early battles in the Atlantic Ocean heavily favored the Germans because they had submarines. Okay, this is very similar to what we saw in World War I. U-boats were used to sneak up on British ships, those are submarines, and sink them with torpedoes. U-boats is short for undersea boot, meaning undersea boat. Germany expedited manufacturing for their U-boats and had hundreds of submarines patrolling the Atlantic by 1943. The Allies were not sure how to fight back and lost many ships during the first few years of the war. In 1942 alone, the Allies lost 1,664 supply ships because they were sunk. The Allies attempted to counter U-boats attack by traveling in large group known as convoys. So all the boats would go together, so if one of them were attacked, they could defend each other. All right, it's like strength in numbers, so to speak. If you're walking with a big group of people, you're a lot more intimidating to fight against if you're just walking by yourself. They had destroyer warships, that's the picture we saw before, to help escort and defend the convoys in the attacks. The method was somewhat effective for a period of time in 1941 to transfer ships to Britain safely. Unfortunately for the Allies, the Germans built something used as a wolf pack tactic, where a number of U-boats surrounded and attacked a convoy at once. Okay, so there was constant fighting going on throughout this time. The Battle of the Atlantic reached its peak in 1943. The Germans had large numbers of submarines in the Atlantic. However, Allies were able to break secret German codes and develop new technologies to fight submarines. The Allies used radar to detect ships and developed special underwater bombs called hedgehogs, okay, like Sonic the Hedgehog, to help destroy the German U-boats. Allied planes used a large spotlight known as Lee light to spot submarines that surfaced at night. The Battle of the Atlantic turned in the Allies' favor by mid-1943, allowing the United States to ship supplies to Great Britain more freely, including large amounts of soldiers and weapons needed for the Normandy invasion, which we'll talk about soon. Impact. The Allied control of the Atlantic Ocean had a major impact on the outcome of the World War II. It allowed Britain to stay supplied and kept Germans from taking over all Western Europe. An estimated 20 supply ships needed to arrive daily in Britain in order for the Allies to continue to fight in World War II. Fatalities and losses of equipment were staggering throughout the battle. Over 30,000 sailors were killed on both sides, which is a lot. The Allies lost about 1,500 supply ships and 175 warships. The Germans lost 783 submarines in the Battle of the Atlantic. Okay, so let's go to here. You tell me right now in the chat, where was the Battle of the Atlantic fought? Where was the Battle of the Atlantic fought? In the Atlantic
Ocean.
Okay, that's why it's called the Battle of the Atlantic. Okay. What Allied countries were involved? Tell me in the chat some countries that you saw that were on the Allied powers. Okay, if you need some help, scroll down yourself and go to here. Okay, the two major countries that I saw, I agree with Leart, is correct. Britain and the US. Okay, very good. Who is the major Axis power? I believe there was just one for the most part. Good, Evelyn. Germany. Okay, excellent. Okay. So the two major details from the battle are basically very simple, guys. It's two things that you learned from the reading that you found interesting. Okay, pick the two most important things that you found interesting. So I'll do one and then you guys give me the other one. One thing that I found interesting was that Germany used the submarines to fight underwater, while America used destroyer ships. So I find that interesting because it's not submarine versus submarine usually, or destroyer versus destroyer. Destroyers are above water. It's destroyers versus submarines. I found that very interesting. What is something one of you guys found interesting from the reading?
How they would spot ships at night.
Okay, cool. All right, so the way both sides spotted each other at night, and I forget the name of it myself. It's called the light. What was it here? The
You put at like the way both sides spotted at each other night.
Oh, my bad.
You
The way
put they.
both sides. My fault. Yep. What was that called again? It was some type of light. The Lee light, right? Okay, and I'll put in parentheses. The Lee light was one way that it went about doing it, which I thought was pretty cool. All right, so those are two things. If you don't like those two things, you could use your own things. You don't need to, stay along with me. Okay, you are welcome to use the ones that you want. All right. What were the results, or what was the impact? So first off, let's start at the bottom here. Who won? Yeah, that's a great one, Lear. You can use that one. America invented radar to detect submarines. Who won the battle? Did the Allied powers or did the Axis powers? Leart says none. I would disagree, Leart. I think someone does end up winning towards the end. Someone gets control of the Atlantic Ocean. I would say the Allied powers do win. No, I see what you're saying. Okay, the Allied powers, I would say, do win. All right, they do win the battle. All right, what is one result or one impact of the battle that was very important? So for me, you got to kind of summarize what the reading was about. So I'm going to look at the impact. The Allied control of the Atlantic Ocean had major impact in the outcome of the war. All right, so I would take something from here. Don't always go with how many people died. That obviously is important, but why was this important to the battle here? It was important because the Allied powers gained control of the Atlantic Ocean. And I'm going to go off what Leart said. and they could supply European countries easily with soldiers and weapons. Go ahead, Cristali. Is that an accident, I guess? Okay. All right, so you see how I went about doing it. Now, I really don't think you're going to finish this today. And if you don't finish today, that's okay. You have plenty of time. You have all of tomorrow to work on this too. So your goal today is to maybe get through the next battle or two. So finish the Battle of Britain and the Battle of Midway. You guys can work on those. All right, I think that's what you should be working on for the rest of the period. And if you could get more done, great. If you get less done, it's no problem. You just got to pick it up tomorrow. All right, I'll be here taking attendance, and please let me know if you have any further questions.